Hi everyone, it's Onyx, and today I'm going to info dump on The Sims. This has been a special interest of mine since middle school, and I am now 27 years old. So let's dive into the weird, interesting, and unusual. So the origin of this game was from a developer, Will Wright, which I think is, I don't know, I really like his name. Will Wright. He founded Maxis, and the idea came to him when he had to refurbish and refurnish his home after a fire. And he came up with the idea. He originally came up with SimCity, and then when he teamed up with EA and eventually sold the rights and everything, they had come up with the original Sims, and then a couple years later, Sims 2, and then Sims 3, and then Sims 4. Just as a preface to all of this, the timeline is so messed up. I don't know what they were thinking in the office, but there's Sims 1, and then Sims 2. Sims 3 is a prequel to Sims 2, and then Sims 4 is its own, like, it's just off. It's its own thing. It's not canon to lore, I guess, even though they do have a lot of lore that they share with the rest of the games. So when he sold it to EA, EA decided to, again, make The Sims, and it was released in the year 2000, which I would have been 2 by then, and it went off without a hitch. Everyone was loving it, everyone was talking about it, and the fan base was so thrilled with it that they demanded more and more and more. They just kept on going, hey, when's the next game, when's the next update? So that's where the packs, the game packs, expansion packs, stuff like that, came from, just so they would kind of have a cushion between each game that they made. Meanwhile, they have denied the creation of Sims 5, so they've just been adding more and more and more to Sims 4. But the lore starts out with, this is going to be kind of a slapdash of things through all 3 games, and then there will be some in the 4th. But they all kind of intertwine, and the timelines are weird, so I figured I'd just say it all. But yeah, I have come up with a slightly cohesive timeline. In The Sims 1, you could either make a sim, or, which, making a sim back then, wow, does time fly, because I don't think I would probably play it for the lore, but if you play it and it's not like a nostalgia thing for you, you'll understand. The create a sim, CAS as they call it now, was basically pick the head shape you want, pick the shirt and the pants, and that's it. And like, they gave you some traits, but it was mainly started by Will Wright, the idea and everything, about being just a furnishing and building house game. And they would have Sims come in and like tell you if they like your house or not. Super weird. But back to the topic. You could either make a sim or play a pre-made family. And one of the pre-made families is, if you choose to do the tutorial, you will play as the newbie family, Bob and Betty Newbie. And I don't know, I love the way that they name characters. Now the main families, you could also play as the Goth family, the Pleasant family, and the Bachelor family. There were only 2 life stages, in the first game. It was adult and child. But there were more and more in other games. Even in the second one, they had toddler, child, teen, and adult. So that's two more than they had in the first game. And you see The Sims 4 now. You have babies, infants, toddlers, kids, teens, young adults, adults, and elders. That's how much they have like added on and on. And a weird bit of information, especially with EA, you wouldn't expect this, but when they found out people were modding the first game, they encouraged it. They actively encouraged it. And if you play The Sims 4 today, it has its own mods folder. They love it. So, going on, this is kind of The Sims 2. It was more in depth. Instead of just a 2D, you would scroll up and click on your sim. That was it. And weirdly enough, this was a huge thing in Sims 3, but even as far back as Sims 1, you were able to turn on and off the autonomy of your Sims, which is just terrifying to think about. But yeah, so in Sims 2, this is considered the biggest jump of all the, 4 Sims games. But there was also SimCity, there was Herbs, stuff like that. But I'm just talking about the Sims 1, 2, 3, and 4. It was considered the biggest jump because they added so much. They added just a few packs for the first game, but for the second game, a lot of elder Gen Z and millennials have a deep love and understanding for The Sims 2. So again, they had more life stages: toddler, child, teen, adult, and elder. They also had genetics, which in the first game you would just kiss someone and then you would have a baby. Back then they didn't even call it woohoo. Like, I'm pretty sure they just said, I want to have a baby. Now they call it woohoo, which I think is funny. You could also, instead of it being 2D, I was saying this earlier, you can now scroll 3D. You can zoom in on their faces in Create a Sim, Cass. Sorry about that. In Create a Sim, you could now give aspirations, and they gave you the option of more traits, turn-ons and turn-offs. Yeah, you could adjust the facial features by different sizes, colors, stuff like that, and like I said, again, genetics. In the first game, they didn't really look like their parents. They're just kind of random Sims that pop out, which is... They also had wants and fears. And, I grew up with The Sims 3. And I remember seeing so many little wants and fears around my sim. It almost became overwhelming, but it was still very fun to play. The graphics were very... it's still, like, if you look or play Sims 2 today, you'd be like, whoa. Yeah, that's looking like Skyrim over here. But at the time, it was a huge jump in quality. And so they had different camera angles, graphics. The parents could now teach their kids to walk and talk. Teens could go steady with a boyfriend or girlfriend or partner. They could also break curfew. Adults could woohoo, and that's when they started calling it woohoo. The elders could retire and die. And one of the most interesting aspects of Sims 2 that I wish they would bring back, honestly. They had scenes that played. In the Sims 3 and the Sims 4, they have little, like the camera will focus on them. But in The Sims 2, it was cinematic. I mean, honestly, I'm still impressed with how, especially back in the day, it came out in around 2003. It was wow. My favorite ones are the ones that are like, if you're a kid and you have this game, don't play it around your parents. They have different woohoo scenes, and I won't go into too much depth, but, you know, they started getting really freaky with it. They would have like different ways that you can woohoo instead of just kiss and baby. They also had they had a lot of scenes. There were ones for like having a baby where it would zoom in on the plumb bob, which is the diamond, spinning diamond shape on top of their head, and it would split in two, and then it would go back down to the sim, and she'd be holding a baby. Which I mean, honestly, and it was so animated. It was so, I don't know, it had life in it that I don't even think The Sims 4 has, honestly. There's also having an alien baby. Just really, really cool stuff. There's when people go to university, they would, they'd have a scene where their friends or family like cry and hug them goodbye. It's crazy. Now that we've kind of got the basics down, I would like to go into the characters, which there are three that have lived through all the games, even Sims 4. There's the Goth family, the Bachelor family, and the Pleasant family. But there's also these are just three of the main ones, but there's, the Crumple Bottoms, the Caliente family, stuff like that. So I will be going on just kind of again, it'll be, all together thing. Because they all kind of, I mean, obviously they interact with each other. With the first game, there were only two neighborhoods. It was just called Neighborhood 1 and 2, which I think is really funny. In the second game, they had Lunar Lakes. Actually, that might be the third game. I'm pretty sure it's the second game, though. Sorry about that. But there were different, there's Appaloosa Plains, which I wish they'd bring back. But again, Sims 4 is just kind of like its own alternate timeline, which I've never understood. It wasn't a huge jump in quality from Sims 3, especially when you bought it in like 2014 when it first came out. Oh my gosh. It looked. Yeah. But, sorry, went on a tangent there. With the Goth family, the earliest ancestor is Lolita Goth, which I think is really funny, who has family roots with the Gomez family. One descendant of Lolita. I feel so gross saying that just because I've read the book. So anytime I say Lolita, I'm like, uh-oh. But one of the descendants of Lolita is Lady Raven Dancer, who wrote, she's canonically a witch. She wrote Lady Raven Dancer's Book of Spells, which I think is really, I mean, in the second game too, and that was around 2003. It's pretty crazy. It's a tome, I call it tome, that can be found in the Gothic library. And instead of it being Gothic as in like Gothic, it's Gothique, which was founded with the first generation of Goths that moved into Sunset Valley. Bella Goth, she has a lot of mystery about her. it is canon that she has the capability of using magic. And Cornelia Crumplebottom, her mother-in-law, Crumplebottom, oh my gosh, oh, Cornelia, she would appear on different flyers and like things that Bella would put out to be like, oh, come to my, I'm going to be doing magic. And Cornelia Crumplebottom had relatives, Beatrice, Belinda, and Bianca, that were also witches. The family is known for being kind of businessmen, politicians, and weirdly enough, scientists. I don't know, I just don't really see that in kind of like the same group, I don't know. But there's Mortimer, Bella, Cassandra, and Alexander. Mortimer, when he's first introduced, is an elder, and his Bella is she's 28 days from being an elder, so she's basically a young adult, when it's first made. But yeah, she came from the Bachelor family, and a bit of a weird lore drop. She's the one that most people are interested in when they figure out the lore. A lot of people who play The Sims don't even know there's lore. And I ended up finding it out on accident, and I've been stuck ever since. But the reason she's so popular with the fan base is because in The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, it's very eerie, especially at night. If you go outside, not your sim, but if you just pan the camera outside, it's very liminal space. It's scary. So Bella marries Mortimer, and then well, this is in the second game, apologies. She is dating Don Lothario. And the last picture you see of her is her looking through a telescope at the night sky, and he's looking at her, in my opinion, very menacingly. So people think, oh, he killed her, which I wouldn't put that past The Sims because there is very dark topics. But she ended up, there were two main theories. She was either dead by Don Lothario or abducted by aliens. And the reason they think that is because Bella is gone, and when you go to Lunar Lakes, she's there, but she's dead. And that's the whole reason people think, oh, she's abducted by aliens, is because it's in Lunar Lakes. Plus, she was doing, stargazing. And you can actually add her to your household, the one from the Lunar Lakes. And when you close out the game and open it back up, she's gone. She's not a part of your family anymore. It genuinely scared me. But going on to the rest of the Bachelor family, the parents of her are Yocasta and Simus. And the Bachelor family is kind of seen as very close. Meanwhile, the Goth family and the Crumplebottoms, they were just kind of, all business, have successful lineage, stuff like that. There's not much to know about the Bachelor family, but I found all I could. Onto the Crumplebottoms. It's Prudence, Simon, Agnes, Agatha, Beatrice, Belinda, Bianca, Mrs. Crumplebottom, and Cornelia. They lived on, and I thought this was just a Sims 4 thing that they made Henford on Bagley, but it's an actual world as far back as The Sims 2 or The Sims 3. She's seen as very grouchy, and I don't blame her, because once you learn the lore, you're like, oh my god, this is insane. But they also live in Sunset Valley and Pleasant View. But when Agnes married Eric Darling from the Darling family. On their honeymoon, he ended up drowning. Um, this is what I'm talking about, like very, very dark. And so she inherited the house and all the wealth from her husband, but she became a recluse and super grouchy. She doesn't like seeing people, happy or she's very uptight too. But yeah, honestly, I love her. I wish I could protect her, that poor thing. um, so moving on, not moving on, I'm so sorry. If you look at her family tree, because that's a thing in the Sims 2 and Sims 3, I'm pretty sure you can do it in the Sims 4, but it's like completely different from the way you can find it in the Sims 2 and 3. When you hover over her family tree, everyone else is dead, and she's the only survivor, which is so depressing. People were saying, oh, I think she killed her husband and then her family, which it's like, I don't think so. Just because once you learn the lore, she's very close with her family. And then all that happened. I'd be devastated too. I'd probably go into hiding. The Caliente family, the next one. The parents are Nestor and Dulciana. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. They had a son named Tango and another son named Flamenco, who married. I'm going to try and pronounce this. Nighat, Nighat. The reason I pronounce it like that is because the character is from The Sims 2 and Sims 3, mainly The Sims 3, has a real big problem with being racist. So they made, like, everyone from Egypt was just generic Middle East. It didn't really have, like, anything other than just racist stereotypes. So she was, like, the daughter of these two, rulers. And they ended up having, it was the El Mahmoud family. They had twins, Nina and Dina. And that's about as far as the families go, at least the ones that are very, prominent. So moving on to the weird deaths. It's very dark. The Sims is it can be very dark. There's death by cow plant, which, if you don't know how that works, you can raise a cow plant. You have to have a very, like, high level of gardening skill. And you have to feed them. And if you don't feed them, they have a little cake that pops out on the end of their tongue, kind of like a football fish, the ones with the lantern, just kind of drawing in their prey, which is a sim, and then they'll eat them. They have, a chance of being spit back up, but being, like, very, like, stressed about it, because obviously it'd be like getting eaten by a giant Venus flytrap. And if they end up passing away, in The Sims 4 at least, you can milk the cow plant and get whatever emotion they last felt. There's drowning, of course. Everyone knows, even those who don't play Sims. Sorry about that. Even those who don't play the games recognize, oh, you delete the ladder, your sim can drown. Of course, they got rid of that in The Sims 4. They got rid of a lot of good stuff in The Sims 4, unfortunately. There's also electrocution or lightning. So electrocution, obviously, if you're, like, fixing a... In The Sims 4, that's the one I can mainly think about. If there's water dripping from your fridge and you have to fix it, there's a chance of your sim being electrocuted, and they won't die immediately, but having it done over and over and over again, they will, obviously. With lightning, I think there's less of a chance of surviving, but you still, like by the second or third one, you pass away. Your sim does. There's fire, of course. There's hunger. Meteorites, that was the thing, all the way back in The Sims 2, I believe. Might be Sims 1. There's just a random chance of a meteorite falling down on you. There's also old age, overexertion. It's usually with elders. There's anger, embarrassment, laughter, sauna. These other ones. So starting from sauna on down is The Sims 4. There's the sauna. So if you get too steamy or you're locked in there, then obviously you pass away. There's eating pufferfish nigiri, and if the chef is a very low level sim and they end up making pufferfish because they're poisonous, but it is, a delicacy, the person will die. If you're a vampire, there's sunlight. There's also rabid rodent fever. Hate that one. Bees, poison. These two, the poison, and there's insects as well outside of the bees. You can get medicine to help, or sometimes there's a spray you can get. And it's mainly when you're going through the jungle. There's a death flower. There's freezing. There's overheating. Being pulled underwater, that is a Sims 4 thing, weirdly enough. It came with the mermaid pack. There's the mother plant. That pack genuinely scared me. Like, I hated it. The Sims get all creepy, and they have their eyes, like, wide, and they have these really... It's giving the My Little Pony infection alternate universe, where they just have very exaggerated, kind of like analog horror look to it. And the Sims has a dialogue box of, when your Sim is interacting with other ones, it'll tell you what they're saying, in The Sims 4 at least. And it's always something like, the mother will feed us. It freaked me out. I was like 18 when I got it, and oh my god, I had goosebumps playing it, and I still do, and that's just so weird. There's also a spellcaster. If you're a spellcaster, there can be an overload, you'll die. There's catastrophic meltdown, which I think is, there's a lot of these that are kind of silly. But catastrophic meltdown, I think, takes the cake because, I've been there. There's the research machine. There's a chance of getting attacked by a rabbit. Especially if you have cheats on, especially in the PC, it's, you type testing cheats true. You can left click, or you can shift click on a sim and have them killed by a killer rabbit. And I don't know about that. It's very scary. I don't like that it's an option that you can just do. There's also a toxic stink bomb, which honestly same. There's an urban legend. There's the Murphy bed. That actually happens. I'm pretty sure it was a glitch. They had to patch it in the next, update, because, you couldn't put it up without your sim dying. It would just happen all the time. There's also Beetlejuice, which I think is really funny. the beetles make this juice and you drink it, you die. There's also death by flies. That is more of a Sims 2 thing. Very scary if you have. There's multiple ways, but I'm pretty sure one of them is if you don't clear out your fridge, you will get. The flies will. You open it and the flies will attack you and you'll die. There's also mountain climbing, vending machine that'll tip over, a chicken attack. It's happened once with my Sims, and I was like, this is why I grew up raising chickens. Obviously, The Sims is not centered in reality. It's not, factually accurate, but it's just, chickens are so small. There's also mold, and in the third game, there is a very creepy death. There's two, actually. You can wait out by the lake, and there can be Nessie, Loch Ness Monster. Will just kind of show up, but sometimes you can die. And the dying is very scary in The Sims 3. It's very eerie. There's usually a lot of bones, which I think is very. It's something. But you can also be cursed by a mummy when you go to the Egyptian. I'm just going to call it that because that's basically what they were doing. And if a mummy curses you, very honestly, probably the scariest death for me. It's just very eerie. You have 14 days to get uncursed, otherwise you will die. There's also the way that you die. The screen will kind of like turn black a little bit, and will show a mummy's face, and I hate that. It's just so creepy. And then they'll just like turn into sand and die. There's also a thing called time sickness, which, oh my gosh, if you have The Sims 3 and you go into the future and you come back, there is a chance of you getting this thing called time sickness. You basically it's weird because when it shows the Sim, it's like turns invisible. It's like fading in and out of like the Sim being there. And then they will make a gut-wrenching cry and like reach up to the air and they will just disappear. That's what time sickness is. Super, super freaky, cryptic. I don't know, man. But I thought I would end the video on some fun facts that not a lot of people know. Except for the, first two. When you're on a computer, the Sims can play The Sims. There's also Sims can watch Sims on the TV from the prior games. So in The Sims 4, there are plenty of movies that have The Sims 3 look to it that they'll watch. Again, there's Nessie, can appear in the lake in Sims 1. There's a thing that sparked a debate, not in like an angry way. Sorry about that. Not in an angry way, but it was just people kind of throwing theories out there. There's this thing that is followed through all the games called the mysterious virus. And it's sometimes people just get it. Like, what the heck? They have different looks in each game, but in the Sims 4, it has these weird cracked lines all over you, and you have, a fever and a headache, and you feel gross. And you can, sometimes it'll go away on its own, but most of the time, at least in my experience, I like to order medicine. Sims actually has its own postage stamp that is recognized by the USPS, the United States Postal Service. they have a stamp that you can get that, well, it's like legitimate. And honestly, when I figured that out when I was doing this research, I kind of wanted to get it, honestly. There are many different ways in The Sims 4 that you can bring someone back to life. But one of the most interesting ways, to me at least, is level 10 writers can bring a sim back to life by writing a living Sims epic story, quote unquote, and it will bring back that sim. A weird thing, which I'm honestly, because usually when I play The Sims, I design The Sims, play for one day, and then don't play them at all. It kind of started after high school. I don't know, I lost patience, I guess. But when you hit 100 days in the game, you get a congratulatory letter with facts about the developer for the next 28 days, which honestly is really cool. And if your sim is really good with the handiness skill, it's usually level 10, your sim can hack into the. Could be Rick and Morty. You can hack into the TV and get channels from different planets, like alien TV shows and stuff. It's really cool. So, yeah, that is the end of my video. I hope you guys like it. I'll see you later. Bye.